Hi, my name's Steve Cooper. I'm now 67 and thoroughly enjoying life. I work at Acorn Christian Healing Foundation and I've been a Christian since 1982. I was born in Birmingham. I know I don't have a Birmingham accent now, but that's good, I think. We moved to Guildford in 1959. Strangely enough, on the religious side, I became a Guildford Cathedral chorister. I must have had a good voice in those days. I spent 5 years singing psalms, all sorts of things, but I never heard a word from God as far as I remember. I was confirmed in Guildford Cathedral, but for me that was because I was told to be. I left school, I became a baker. Before I was 20, I met a young lady and we got married. Life can get a bit difficult sometimes. I lost my wife to meningitis. We were only married for 14 months. From that, I became quite a bitter person and very, very, very angry. And I went into the Merchant Navy, where I lived a very hard life for the next 3 years. I left the Merchant Navy in a bit of a state. I had some good friends at home and they were looking after me. And one of them was a female who decided that I wasn't as bad as I thought I was. And she took me under her wing. And eventually, Jan, her name is, we got married. And for a couple of years, life was pretty good. But my old ways started to come back. Life was tough for her. Life was selfish for me. If I didn't get my way, I got angry. So, not a particularly nice person. Some of these things I found out afterwards. It came to a point where Jan was about to divorce me. But my sister-in-law had just had a baby at that time, and she wasn't very well. She was rushed up to Great Ormond Street and had an operation. So my wife, who was a Christian, I wasn't, began praying for a good outcome from that, and there was one. So she decided that she would pray for me once more. The words that she was using was that I would ask for help from a man called Derek. Derek was her deputy head of school. Jan was a teacher, and he was a Christian. I didn't even like the sound of his name. He was a Christian. Through an extraordinary event where I was about to be violent, very. Instead of that, I actually spoke the words, I need help. I will speak to Derek. 3 days later, Derek and his wife from the evangelical church came round. And as they were talking about Jesus, I knew deep inside from that day on, which day? The Sunday or the Wednesday? I don't know. I think from Sunday to Wednesday was a blur, those 3 days. But really, from that time on, my life changed. Changed a lot. My outlook was different. Trees were different. Grass was different. People were different. I was different. Old stuff didn't instantly disappear, but new things were beginning to happen. I was beginning to read a Bible. I could rip that book apart. It was full of mixed messages, but they were becoming alive to me. I began to do this thing called prayer. I was talking to somebody you can't see. But it had an effect. And I was really, really enjoying life for the first time that I could really remember. So I'd had a bad time, and my life was just beginning as far as I could see. Not long after I became a Christian, I'm a baker by trade. I started a business in Hazelmere. And even God had his hand on that. I wanted a small, tiny place. And God had other ideas. It was much, much bigger than I ever wanted it to be. And we were very successful. I had good staff. I learnt a lot about people. I had 50 staff and 7 shops. I learnt patience. I had asked God for patience. That was not the brightest thing to do. Patience comes through difficulties sometimes. It's not just given to you on a plate. So I learnt patience, but I learnt a lot about people. And instead of disliking everybody I come into contact with, I found that people were good. People liked me. I hadn't noticed that before. I always thought that I was the person on the end they didn't want anything to do with. I wasn't very pleasant. So at that time, that was probably right. But people started to want to be with me, talk to me. I was finding this Christianity stuff really interesting and changing me and my lifestyle. And that really is the first part of my life. I've been in Acorn since about 2007. I was invited to come here by Elizabeth. So I've seen a lot of healing and a lot of mending going on in this place. I never thought that I would need the sort of prayer that I have needed through illness. I'd never been ill. If you have your own business, you don't become ill. And even if you do, you go to work. So it was an attitude. I was never ill. And I didn't think that an illness could stop you doing anything. I was very much mistaken. Very much mistaken. I was taking part in a quiet day here as ministry team. And it was just after lunch. And I had searing pain inside. I tried to get outside and I went through the back way, through the kitchen. And I can remember pounding on a stainless steel tabletop saying, "You and I, Lord, have sorted this out." I'd had the pain before, but not like this. And the next thing I knew, I woke up over a week later in hospital. I'd been diagnosed with acute severe pancreatitis. Illness can stop you doing things. It can just take you out completely. I knew right from the beginning, when I came back to consciousness, that Acorn, the team were praying for me, my church was praying for me, my Christian family were praying for me, and I couldn't pray. Combination of morphine and everything. I just could not pray at all. If I remember rightly, I had something like about 150 cards turn up, virtually everyone with a prayer on it. People from this place turned up every day, 7 days a week. 2 months I was in the hospital. And they were by my bedside praying, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night. Elizabeth, the chaplain here, used to be the chaplain at the hospital. She would turn up at midnight and they just let her in. So I was being prayed for all the time. I couldn't pray for myself, but I was very grateful for those prayers. I remember one time, there was a particularly bad night, really bad. I'm not sure whether I was yelling out loud or yelling in my head, on my inside, "I need you now, Lord. You promised you would look after me. Come quick, come now. Our enemy's attacking me, and I need you." The next day after that, I was feeling a little better. And the man in the opposite bed said, "You have had a very bad night, and I was praying for you." Well, I didn't know he was a Christian. He said, "I saw angels round your bed." I forgot to ask him what they looked like. But I was very grateful that they were there. God answered that prayer, "Come now, come quick. Our enemy is attacking me." The condition that I had has a 30% mortality rate. If you survive, your organ failure is quite slow, but it happens, and your life expectancy is quite short. The surgeon doctor who was obliged to explain to me that I probably wouldn't get out of hospital for at least 7 months, or maybe not at all. She was lovely, but that's not an easy job to tell somebody that their life is going to change probably forever. And it might not be quite as long as they thought it was going to be. With the condition that I had, they wanted to take my gallbladder out. A large stone had got stuck. And my pancreas had melted. There are computer pictures of all the scans on the screens to show that all this had happened. They were very surprised that I was fit enough to come out of hospital in 2 months. But they had seen the amount of prayer that had gone into that. I eventually came out after that 2 months on just over 200 tablets a month to keep me alive. As far as I was concerned, I was healed. God had used the medical profession and prayer, and I was healed. I was a free man again. I came back to Acorn. Must have been 3 or 4 weeks. And Elizabeth pulled me to one side and said, "I'm going to pray for you again." And she put her hand on me and prayed for complete restoration of my pancreas. Not possible. The pancreas does not heal itself. But I sat with that prayer all day and worked here and went home. And I was up most of the night thinking about that and praying. And it felt right to me to speak to the hospital and say, "I would like to stop taking all these tablets. When can I do so?" I was told under no circumstances must I stop taking the tablets. None at all. But if I was that adamant, I would have to do more tests. And when I went in to have my gallbladder taken out, that they would analyse the results. That duly came about. I did the tests, went in, had the gallbladder taken out, came home again. I think it was 4 or 5 weeks after that I got a call to go back. All the test results were in, and I went in and saw the same surgeon doctor who told me that life wasn't probably going to be like I thought it should be. And she had a big grin on her face, and she had 2 computer screens running. And her first words were, "You can stop taking the tablets," which was brilliant. And then I asked her if I could drink alcohol again, because if you haven't got a pancreas, you can't drink alcohol, it will really make a mess. And she said, "Yes, it appears that you're normal," which seems to be quite a joke for most people, for me to be normal. Anyway, she showed me the computer screens. One on when I was let out of hospital the first time, with just a mushy area where my pancreas was supposed to be, and the new one with the pancreas that's working. Now, there might be a lot of people say, well, that's made the wrong diagnosis. I've heard that one. This is not true. I was in great pain. The hospital has seen all this before. In the ward that I was on, 2 men died of the same thing. No. For some reason, God saw fit to physically heal me. There was a huge amount of prayer going up, not from me, because I couldn't pray, but from others. And with that, I've been healed. I'm back working here now, full-time. Full-time, that is Tuesdays, Thursdays, and whatever courses that need to be done. I'm in an Anglican church and I've decided to train for lay ministry. I see God healing different people in different ways. When you pray for somebody, it's God who heals, sets them free. I have seen other physical healings, but not very many. Most of the healings we see are freedom from all sorts of bondage. People being able to forgive and say sorry. People walking out of this building with their head held high. And that's how quick sometimes prayer works. At other times, it can be months and months. But it's my true belief that prayer is essential in the healing ministry. Absolutely essential. I know it works. I believe it works. Other people don't have to believe. But if I pray for somebody, I'd have to believe. It's my belief that when I pray for somebody, God hears that prayer. He stretches his hand out and it's him that heals. What I have found is the healing doesn't always come the way I think it should. God heals his way that's best for that person, not the way I want it to be. It's the way God thinks it should be, which is correct. I don't make brilliant decisions, but I know my God does. I don't assume about other people anymore. I don't try and give them advice. I think I have empathy now that I didn't have before. I care about other people, and I didn't before. If they matter to God, they must matter to me because they're made in His image. I didn't understand that before either. There's plenty more to learn. And I'm learning, but slowly. I'm not a quick learner.